Christie fell and da-da-da-da-da. And so what happened is they're down there, there's a fire, there's a wall right next to the fire. And night vision is all screwed up with a fire pit. And she just misplaced her step, and I mean, it wasn't anything. Yeah, it was just a fluke.
Hello, dear friends. It's August here. Hope you are having a great week. The Annapolis Boat Show is just over, where a lot of you came to see us and to join our parties, which was really great. So thanks to everyone who came out. In addition to socializing and meeting all of you, we also did a bunch of great podcast interviews during the boat show, the following being one of them. This is an Andy episode, but he is unavailable today, so I'm stepping in to record these intros for him. If you didn't hear already, we just published Falken's 2025 sailing calendar, and we are going to the Pacific Ocean. We're going through the Panama Canal to Galapagos, across the equator, Tahiti, Marquesas, Hawaii, British Columbia, and then south. Very exciting season indeed. So if you want to join us aboard our Far 65 flagship, go to 59-north.com/2025. If you just can't wait that long, we also have lots of other trips available. In fact, we have a few very cool trips on Falken this January already, from Lagos to Las Palmas and Las Palmas to Cape Verde. So go and check out those trips at 59-north.com/offshore. There you can also find some very cool Isbjörn trips. Isbjörn is undergoing a very exciting refit in Sweden right now, and you can be the first to sail her when she splashes in February, and get to go sailing with a brand new, shiny 52-year-old classic swan. So I hope to see you there on some of those trips. That would be really cool. And that's it for me for this time. Please enjoy this week's episode, and don't forget to hold fast.
On the Wind is supported this season by AG1, the daily foundational nutritional supplement that supports whole body health. I gave AG1 a try because offshore, eating balanced nutritional meals comes secondary to managing the boat, not to mention managing my sleep and seasickness. I drink AG1 as part of my routine in the watch schedule, usually before my first cup of coffee, and it makes me feel confident that I'm getting the nutrition I need no matter how the rest of my day's eating goes. I actually started drinking AG1 years ago as part of my fitness routine ashore before 59 North even existed. But now that I spend a big chunk of my time at sea each year, it's become an even more important part of my routine in order to maintain my overall health while my main focus is required elsewhere on the boat. I can cover all my nutritional bases for the whole day with one scoop of AG1 mixed in my water bottle each morning. It tastes great, makes me feel great, and it costs less than $3 a day. If a comprehensive solution is what you need from your supplement routine, then try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase. Go to drinkag1.com/onthewind. That's drinkag1.com/onthewind. Check it out. On the Wind is also supported by our very good friends, back again, Forbes Horton Yachts. We've had a fantastic relationship with Forbes over the years. He's been a friend of mine in Annapolis and a work colleague for many, many years. In fact, since long before 59 North even existed. Forbes is a sailor himself, so he understands boats. He understands offshore sailing especially. He and his wife took a Tartan 34 to the Caribbean and back in the day. And they still sail today on the Chesapeake. If you have a boat that you're looking to buy, whether or not Forbes is listing it, he can be your buyer's broker. Or if it's come time to sell your boat, he can, of course, list it and be your selling broker. Forbes is fun to work with. He's a really great guy, knows his stuff, and is not your typical blowhard broker. So check out ForbesYachts.com. That's FORBES, ForbesYachts.com. And if you're around at the Annapolis Sailboat Show, he will be there at the X Yachts exhibition, which is out on the docks, out by where the Woodwind is, and you can meet us there. We'll announce this later, but a couple times a day we're going to fire the cannon out at Forbes' booth with X Yachts. So go say hi to Forbes if you're at the boat show this year, and if you want to buy or sell your dream boat, check out ForbesYachts.com. Thanks again to Forbes Horton for sponsoring this episode of the podcast. You're listening to On the Wind, my podcast about offshore sailing. I'm your host, Andy Schell.
If you've been around this podcast for a while, Matt Rutherford won't be a stranger to you. Famous for being the first person to sail solo non-stop around the Americas, he's now the operator of Ocean Research Projects and has his own amazing podcast called Single Handed. Andy met up with Matt yet again, and their conversation meanders from high-latitude sailing and crew management to weed and psychedelics.
Okay, Matt, we're going to do a sound check. Tell me your name and what you had for breakfast today.
I don't remember what I had for breakfast today.
Do you remember your name?
I think I'm still Matt. What did I have for breakfast today? Fuck. Oh yeah, I had a bagel with salmon.
There you go.
Salmon and cream cheese and lox, Andy.
That's good. All right, we are sitting in Annapolis in our house. We were supposed to record this on Pride of Baltimore. It's pouring down rain outside. Are you hungover?
Yeah, a little bit. This is my third hungover podcast and my second one in 3 days or something ridiculous.
What was your other one? One you just recorded for your show?
Yeah. For the Single-Handed Sailing Podcast.
Who came up with that name?
I don't know, but he must have been smart, I guess.
That's right. Well, I had an idea with you to start the double-handed sailing podcast. Here comes my sister and Kevin. Guys, do you want to be the audience for the podcast? Come on in, you can listen.
Hello and welcome to Double Handed. I am Andy Schell.
Your, I think, idea was to do it, but to do it on acid last night about midnight when we were drinking whiskey
Sounds like a great
on Marie
idea.
Tharp.
Yeah, it sounds like a great idea.
I'm not sure I'm ready for that.
Well, if you ever are, just let me know.
One day.
I actually have a podcast. I did like that. I interviewed somebody. And
did they know you were on acid?
Well, they were too. The idea was, it was their idea. They wanted a microdose. Now, I had never microdosed, and they had some acid. So I was like, all right, well I guess, it's like all the rage, I guess, and I don't know.
Microdosing thing, yeah.
But we ended up macrodosing instead of microdosing.
On purpose or by accident?
Kind of on accident. I think we did not, I don't know. I'm ambitious, man. What can I say? So, yeah.
All or nothing, huh?
So it was two guys, and one of them, we were trying to talk about rigging, and one of them didn't say a word the whole time. And yeah, I think you can't tell. I think.
Did you publish it?
Oh, yeah. I didn't.
You can't tell?
Well, I never mentioned it before. I had another one with those guys where we were drunk as out of our skulls. It was really bad. But it ended up raising a ton of money. It's the craziest shit. It's one of the crazier things that have happened to me in the whole time I've been doing this we had this you were actually at you were there for one of them. You left. You came. Remember when I had that
party
house?
At your house?
Yeah, I was grilling in the backyard.
Yeah, you had the turntable out then later. We missed that last night. We had our big joint party last night at J World in Annapolis, and I was disappointed that you didn't get the turntables out.
Well, yeah, they got locked in the office. Someone accidentally locked the office, and we don't have a key to the room, so we have to have a locksmith come on.
Are you serious? They're actually locked in the office.
We had to get a locksmith. They're in like an extra room in the office. That nobody has a key to this room because nobody ever shuts the door, and somebody accidentally shut it, so they got locked in there. But anyways, we were at that barbecue, and I'm cleaning the grill at like 1 or 2 in the afternoon, just thinking about getting ready, having like a beer, but like a really strong beer, and I'm thinking about it. And yeah, it's by the time we did the podcast, it was like midnight, and I've been drinking all day. And you had been there, and you had brought some people, and so it just turned out like it was an absolute drunken mess. And so I was like, I can't publish this shit. So we tried it again. And the same shit happened again. I'm out there cleaning the grill at 2 in the afternoon, having a beer, and it just went downhill. So like 3 months later, I was like, well, fuck it. I'm just going to, I didn't feel like doing a podcast ever. So I kind of edited together this complete train wreck of a podcast, put it out there. And originally the guy was kind of mad at me a little bit. He's like, I can't believe you fucking published that. Cause he owns a company here in Annapolis and shit.
He's got a reputation to uphold.
Yeah. And he ended up getting a bunch of work from it. And then I ended up, one of the guys who was one of his sort of customers, And the guy ended up dropping like 25 grand or something not that long after. And then he donated a couple large chunks. And I have been struggling for a long time to raise any money to finish the boat. You know, the boat project was kind of early. And it was a huge boost, like, to morale. You know, it was like, wow, we might actually do. I thought I was going to have to do another big, crazy single-handed trip to raise, you know,
on your 60-foot schooner, single-handed.
Well, I was going to do it without the interior. I was going to.
That's right. I remember you talking about.
Yeah,
this.
I was going to circumnavigate the Arctic.
We got Emmett here. We got a dog audience. Emmett, you need to sit right there, buddy.
I need a dog.
He's a good size for a boat.
He is. I need a small dog, unfortunately, because I got to get him in and out of the. I got 6 feet of freeboard. It's a little hard to get a big dog out of the. I like big dogs. I like dogs, period. But Greenland, they're really weird about dogs. Well,
dogs are tools in Greenland, right?
Yeah, but they got weird laws. So, like, in the north of the Arctic Circle, they have this like Greenlandic dog looks like a husky. And that's what they use. And yeah, they never come inside.
Right. They're not really pets. They're like not pets as in family members. They're like work horses.
Yeah, PETA or whatever it is would like have a heart attack if they went to Greenland because they don't treat them like we treat dogs. You don't go and pet them. They will bite you if you go and pet them.
Right.
But anyways, north of the Arctic Circle, it is illegal to have any other dog but one of these traditional Greenlandic dogs. South of the Arctic Circle in Greenland, it's illegal to have one of those dogs.
Oh, weird.
So if you had a normal dog, you can't go past the Arctic Circle. Now, that said, Greenland's the Wild West.
I was going to say, who's checking?
Yeah, there's nobody there, so it's not like, you know, I mean, but it would be kind of a hassle. So I would love to get a dog. What am I going to do? I could get a Greenlandic dog and get fake paperwork, like husky paperwork, but no, man, it's a husky. And then I get up there and I switch the paperwork. No, it's a Greenlandic dog. Like, you wouldn't know the difference, you know?
Do you have to? So I went to Greenland for the first time this summer. We never like cleared customs or anything because we went to this small little village called Nanortalik and like there's just nothing there.
Right.
Do you guys go through those formalities because you spend a lot more time up there, obviously, than I would. I was there for 5 days.
Yeah, things have started changing, you know, because we've been going there. 2015 was the first year we're up there. This is my 6th year in the Arctic this year. The Reverend Bob Shepton, who's an absolute...
He was up there again this year. Did you see that?
No, I didn't.
He and the Wild Bunch, those climbers, they went into Scoresby Sund on another Bruce Roberts, not Shepton's boat, but like Shepton went along as like the ice guide. It was some guy, and then those Wild Bunch climbers went looking for big walls in Scoresby Sund.
And they got what's their thing called? Vertical sailing, right?
Yeah, dude. We will rewatch those.
I haven't watched the movie.
It's just short little. They're 5-minute.
They took
YouTube
them all
things.
off. They took them
no,
all
they're
off?
back.
Are they back?
Yeah.
Because they made like a feature-length film about it, right?
I never saw the long version, but there's like 5 or 6 minute episodes of. It's called Vertical Sailing Greenland. Just Google it on YouTube. We'll put the link in here. But like, it's
I love that shit.
Awesome.
Yeah,
it's so cool.
No, I agree.
And like being there now too. I mean, what I said to you the other night, like. I understand why you keep going back. Like, you know, I joke, I tease you that I've sailed farther north than you in Svalbard, but like, I gotta say, I think Greenland's more impressive than Spitsbergen.
Well,
like
yeah, it you know, first off, in the area of Spitsbergen, Svalbard, whatever, in that area, it's the furthest north you can go anywhere on Earth.
That's right.
Because it's just the way it is with the ice cap above it. And I haven't been there, and you were there earlier in the season, at least one of the times. You've been there once or twice now.
The boat's been there twice. I've only been there once.
All right. Now, you were there earlier, which was good for you because you didn't have all the other boats. But people are talking that it's got like the Caribbean of the Arctic, and it's just full of boats.
Well, I mean, that's an exaggeration, but it's not untrue. But they're changing regulations up there now where we might not be able to go back there because now it's kind of stupid because what they're doing is good. Like there's too many, there's cruise ships and stuff up there. And there's not a lot, like it's an exaggeration. It's not a lot, but when you think of it as being like desolate wilderness, that's just not how it is. There's boats there.
Right.
But they changed the regulations where now you can't just go ashore anywhere. Like before, as long as you had a rifle and a permit, you could go ashore pretty much willy-nilly wherever you wanted. Now they're limiting where you can land. And if you're a commercial operation, they're requiring that you take a guide along. So for like small companies like us, like we can't afford to pay a guide and give up one of the spots.
Right.
So that'll work fine for the bigger ships. And the stupid thing is it's the bigger ships that cause the more, they have a larger environmental footprint than a small boat with 5 people on it.
Right.
So, but this is new. This is all new. I think it goes into effect next year. So it remains to be seen how that will go. But it's true in that there's lots of boats up there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'd love to see the place. But yeah, Greenland is a totally different animal. So I talked to Bob Shepton years ago because he's been going to Greenland for, he's like, what, like almost 90?
He's getting up there.
Late 80s. I mean, the guy's an Arctic legend. But, and he never used to check in.
Right.
He's like, I tried to check in, and they looked at me like I was crazy, you know? So earlier on, like 2015, we tried to check in Nuuk, and we got kind of the same experience. A guy kind of came down and looked around at the boat and kind of left. There was no formal paperwork. Every year is different. So the last year, we had to check in twice, and they cared about immigration but not customs. They didn't stamp the passport, but I had to fill out this immigration sheet in Nuuk.
You did in Nuuk. You did this because that's like Nuuk's like the biggest city.
Yeah,
right?
Nuuk's got they call it Little Copenhagen.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
It's got about 16,000 people, but the whole country has 56,000. So it is. I mean, and there is. It's not like a town in America with 15, 16,000.
Right.
There's actually like hotels and buildings of some it's a built up at some level, but anyway, so the form I had to fill out last year was like for giant ships. How many tons of like pork do I have? How many tons of chicken do I have? Like just ridiculous questions. And but it was easy. And then this year in Pamiut, they stamped my passport like in 2 seconds. Like there was no paperwork going on. Like I gave it to this little old lady, and she just stamped everybody's passports in 2 seconds, and then that was it. And then I went up to Nuuk, and I was like, "You need me to do customs?" Like, "No, don't bother. Whatever. You don't want to deal with those guys." And it was those guys telling me not to deal with those guys.
I know. It's funny, isn't it?
Yeah, so every year is different. But Pamiut, if you end up going up there, the police station, the little old lady in the police station, she'll just stamp your passport in 2 seconds, and it's all over with.
Yeah, that's sweet. Yeah, we went into we actually didn't really plan on stopping anywhere because we were en route between Canada and Iceland, but we wanted to go through that Prince Christian Sound in the very bottom of Greenland. And there's a little village called Nanortalik, which is like kind of at the entrance. It's like 30 miles north of the entrance to the sound. And so we were ahead of schedule. We had good weather, and we stopped there. And it was like a tiny village. There was maybe 2,000 people there, but it was so weird.
That's big for Greenland.
Well, yeah, but you had these like we got there, we pull in, we came in out of the fog, and like there's a cruise ship anchored in the harbor, and there's more people on that ship than were in this town. And it was just you see the same thing in Svalbard. It just feels so. You see this like desolate wilderness, and then there's a cruise. It just doesn't make sense to your brain. It's just like, what is that doing here? And then we saw going through the sound, we saw. I think we passed at least two other big, like pretty big, small cruise ships, but big ships. Right.
And that one ship ran aground. Remember hearing about that one? The cruise ship ran aground on the east side of Greenland.
Yeah.
And it was built like for ice class, super duper. It was a nice, I've seen that boat. We saw the boat. It was over in the Northwest Passage earlier. We went right next to it at one point. But cruise ships in the Arctic are always a problem, and there's definitely mixed feelings. I mean, I've shot.
How do you feel about that?
I shot your cannon at him last
year.
Did you? Yeah, I gave him a full broadside as I passed by him.
Hell yeah!
And then one of the hydrographers got mad at me. He's this Brazilian guy. He's like, "Why you shoot the cruise ship?" It's like, "Well, there's no bullets in the thing. It's an empty cannon. It's just blank." But at the same time, he does got a point. I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, who am I to tell people where they can and can't go? On one hand, right? But at the same time, I have seen. 2015, we're up at this place, Siorpaluk. It's the furthest north indigenous settlement on planet Earth. And so way the hell up there. And we're sitting there. It's just me and Nicole. The boat's on anchor. We were researching this glacier that's not far away. And we're sitting there, and a cruise ship comes, drops anchor right next to us. Now, this is like a 300-person cruise ship, so it's a bit smaller.
Small, yeah.
But still, I mean, it's huge compared to us. And this village is about 30 people. And they were looking on the hillside, and they lower these big black ribs. And then they fill them full of people in matching outfits. They got matching red outfits.
Right. They do the same thing in Svalbard. I know exactly what you're saying.
And it looks like a fucking Normandy invasion. I was like, is this D-Day? Like, what the fuck? They're storming the beaches. And they just come blasting at you with these fucking ribs. And then everybody gets out, and there's like 200 people roaming through a town of 30 people. And they're just taking pictures of the people like monkeys in a zoo,
Yeah.
And I'm watching this happen. And the Inuit people living there, they're confused by it. Nobody tells them shit. Nobody says like, hey, a cruise ship's going to show up or something like that.
Right.
And they don't do anything to help the community except take pictures at them, and then they put their feet in the water and went back to have champagne. So,
Yeah.
And I talked to some of the people that worked on it, because this poor girl was having a really hard time. The wind picked up to like 30 knots or something. And she was trying to hold this giant rib on the beach. So I came over and helped her pull it up on the beach. And we talked for a minute, and she was a nice enough person. And I get it. I mean, I know people that work on them, and so I don't know. It's mixed, man. At one point, I hate fucking seeing cruise ships up there. I absolutely hate it, especially when you go really far north.
Yeah.
We had an Etah the next year, which is even further north than that. It's about 78 and a half north, roughly.
So not as far north as I've been then.
A little
saying.
further, I think. It's just you see the planet, Andy, is tilted. There's a slight tilt, and if you look at it close enough,
Right.
you see I'm actually a little further north.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm taller than you too.
We we had a similar experience though, talking about people that work there when we were in Spitsbergen. The exact same thing. When we were with the Delos gang, we had gotten word from another ship that we were anchored like around the corner in this one bay, and then we heard on the radio that there was a polar bear and a cub like walking down the coast like around the corner. So they kind of like told us about it, and then we moved the boat around, and then they, same thing, the black ribs, the red, Gumby suit type things. They go in. There's like 2 or 3 ribs. They take pictures of the bears. They were there for maybe 20 minutes, and then they go back.
Right.
But then the one young guy who was driving the rib, when he went back to the ship and unloaded the last of his customers, he came back to talk to us. And then these bears had found a whale carcass on the shoreline, and we had a really tiny dinghy. We couldn't all fit in the dinghy. So he's like, do you guys you can come in my rib and we can go over there. So he basically just took us in his like giant rib, and we hung out there for like a while.
Is that where you got that picture with the boat in the background and the polar bear?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
okay.
That was that time. But he like took us over in his big rib so we could all go together, and like
Right.
that was super cool.
Yeah,
And he was cool.
Yeah, exactly. It's a weird mix of feelings.
I think it's like anything else. It's like when you see it at a distance and you say you can have an opinion about it, but then when you actually start meeting people, it becomes more nuanced because they're people, like they're real people.
Well, they're
The
getting
people
pissed
that are
off.
guests as well too.
The locals in the Northwest Passage, we had a run-in with them actually up there. They're getting pissed. They're basically we were up in Croker Bay, south side of Devon Island, which is kind of the beginning of the Northwest Passage, mapping uncharted fjords and studying glaciers and whatnot. We're in this place, Croker Bay. Going around the Americas. I went into Croker Bay and drifted around on a parachute sea anchor for, I don't know, maybe 30 hours or something to get some rest and smoke a little weed and get some rest. But
Did you have enough weed to last all the way around the Americas?
it's funny. I had a friend of mine give me 2 ounces of like really good. We used to call it kind bud back in the day because back before it was legal. Like all we had brickweed. So like you'd be like, I got kind bud, man. It's now everything is kind bud. Like the word doesn't exist
Wait,
anymore.
what does kind bud mean?
Kind bud is the weed that has no seeds typically, and it's not compressed. It's like it's what
Yeah.
you see in any dispensary now.
Yeah.
Like all that shit. Like the brickweed is just gone from planet Earth. Like nobody would ever buy it anymore. And thank fucking God, it was terrible. And I spent so much of my life smoking that garbage. But anyway, so I had a half ounce, or I had 2 ounces of that and a half pound of the worst shit you've ever smoked in your entire life. Like it's the shit I found in the Bahamas on an island like a year before that or 2 years
Like
before
you just
that.
maybe it like laying on the beach?
You ever heard that story? I found like pounds and pounds of weed.
Really?
Yeah.
So like from a drug mission that went awry.
Yeah, in the Bahamas, in the Exumas. And they used to talk about all that shit. I mean, this shit was old.
Well, that's that movie Blow, man. You ever see that movie Blow?
Yeah,
Johnny
yeah.
Depp. That's all in the Bahamas.
They used to have drug guys that own the islands in the Exumas. And fly. There's an airplane that's sunk there.
I was there as a kid when I was there. I was on that airplane when I was 10 years old.
Yeah,
in the Bahamas.
It was not far.
So
from
wait,
there.
so you just found a bunch of weed on the beach?
It was 2010, and I was sailing back from the Caribbean. I was finishing that Europe, Africa, Caribbean trip. I was on the Pearson, and I was sailing back single-handed.
That's probably right when we first met then.
Yeah, it was right around that
Yeah.
time. And so, not long before my trip around the Americas, really.
Yep.
And then, so anyways, I leave the Caribbean. I'm sailing back to Annapolis, and my engine is really having a hard time. And I've done this whole Europe, Africa, Caribbean thing for, single-handed. And this hurricane, I'm using a single sideband back then, my single sideband.
You had a single sideband on that Pearson?
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know that.
I put 2 single sidebands on different boats I had. I had one on a 26 Pearson and a 32 Pearson.
So Eastbjorn's in refit in Sweden, and one of the things we're like, August, like, do you really need to keep that SSB? Like, we never use it. Like, no, we're keeping it.
I would not buy one now.
No, but if you have it and it
They're a
works, they're
dinosaur.
kinda
Yes,
cool.
if you have one and it works, sure, absolutely keep it. But I wouldn't go through because it's a lot, the backstay and the fucking tuner and all this other stuff. So I've done it a couple of times, a couple of installations. But anyways, my single sideband wasn't a great. You need a bigger boat. The bigger the boat, the more area below the waterline, the stronger it is. Little boats, they don't work as well. So anyways, I heard this tropical storm was coming on a single sideband, but it was kind of sketchy. I didn't have predict wind or anything back then. So I just was like, fuck this. I'm making a beeline to the Bahamas. And I'm going to hide there. And I even hid like a line. I could have went to like a Luthra or a Cat Island or something, but I went like an extra level in to the Exumas. I was like, I had 2 layers of land.
Yep.
So there's this place right by Highborn Cay, which is on the northern end of the Exumas. This little thing called Oyster Cay, a little tiny thing. And I was waiting for this storm to show up. And so I decided to go for a walk. And this, and it was a little tiny abandoned island, and it had a whole bunch of shrubbery. It was really, really weird and beautiful. The rock must have been some kind of limestone. It had been eaten away in like circular patterns.
Yep.
And some of those circles were like the size you could put like a beer in or something. Some of them were massive circles. You could fall down them. So I walk around the edge of this kind of like a banana shaped kind of island, and I get to the other side, and all right, time to go back to the boat. I can see kind of my mast through the shrubbery. So I decided to walk over the island instead of around through the shrubbery. And I didn't see because it was dense shrubbery, and I fell down one of these damn holes. And I landed on a trash bag. And I'm like, what the fuck is this? So I opened up the trash bag, and it was bricks of weed. And at first, I'm like, I got Blackbeard's treasure. Like, my eyes lit up. I was like, holy shit.
Kevin, are you hearing this story?
Yeah, it was fucking amazing. And so I gather it all up, I'm looking around, and I'm like, did anybody see me here, and I drag it all back in the dinghy, and I row back to the boat, and I'm like, oh, fuck, this is amazing. And then I open it up, and almost all of it smelled like ammonia. Like, it was probably from the fucking 80s. It was like it'd been in there for so goddamn long. God, who knows how it got there, some storm or, somebody got, I have no idea. But there was some of it that was like triple wrapped. And the triple wrap shit, I mean, it was... potency today of like, dispensary weed is up in the like low 20s, it's really strong actually compared to what it used to be. This would have been like 1%. I mean, it was very, 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 very weak and old and funky, but there was a little bit that was salvageable. Most of it I had to throw away. Yeah. But there was a little bit. So anyway, but it was such shit weed that I just like threw it in a storage unit in the States and forgot about it. So before I went around Americas, I was like, well,
this could be useful.
Well, I was like, this is like the weakest stuff ever, but that's not a bad thing. You know what I'm saying? You can roll a doobie and smoke the whole thing and get like a very light little buzz, and which is probably for the best. But my friend did give me a couple ounces. He said, I'm your weed sponsor. Gave me a couple ounces of like really good shit. And yeah, I'm sure I have the record of smoking most weed while sailing alone through the Northwest Passage.
Weren't you saying that you were that somebody was trying to get you into like, what's that weed magazine? Trying to get you recognized for that?
Yeah, High Times.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, obviously I was sober most of the time. But when I drop a parachute sea anchor, I'm sitting there for a couple of days floating around on a parachute sea anchor. I'd roll a couple of doobies or whatever it is and watch the seals go by. And nothing else was going on. It's light, calm conditions and there's nothing around. So
what was the theme of this year's expedition? Like I'd listened to some of your podcast on my way to Greenland. But like what was at the top of your mind this year? Like what was the thing you were passionate about or pissed off about, or what was like a recurring theme this year?
I mean, at the top of my mind is always make sure that it's the boat systems, unfortunately. I hope this shit don't break. I hope the engine doesn't break. I hope, I don't know, something terrible doesn't happen.
Did everything go reasonably smooth this year?
Yeah, I mean, we had 1,001 little issues, as you expect. We didn't have to haul out. It went a lot better than last year. The maiden voyage, there were some problems baked into that boat. You're just not going to know until you get her in the water,
That's
like
right.
the rudder bearing issues and shit like that. We had a surveyor look at it, but you're not going to tell. You and I pushing on that giant rudder ain't going to do much compared to what 25 knots will do with weather helm. So. Anyways, yeah, I mean, things went a lot smoother in a lot of ways. Nobody broke bone. Nicole broke her finger, but it wasn't too bad. She broke the end of her finger and turned black, and her nail fell off. Doing research. There's this thing that collects, called a Niskin bottle. It collects water at different depths. So you lower a probe down to see like the profile, and then you see like, all right, 50 meters and 150 meters would be the place. Everything's done metrically up there, and those would be the places to do it. And it snaps though. It's kind of like a mouse trap. I mean, it doesn't look anything like a mouse trap, but it's the same thing as putting your finger in a mouse trap and somebody pressing a button. I mean, it may be a rat trap even. So it broke the end of her finger. But Nicole, I mean, she was standing in front of a bunch of people. She didn't even say anything really. So she's quite tough. Yeah. But anyways, I mean, last year we had a lot more issues with injuries, and they were all weird injuries. It wasn't like in a storm or some shit. It was. Half of them, the boat was on the hard. Half the time, the boat wasn't even in water. The worst injuries happened then. Yeah. Someone broke their arm in 3 places, and somebody broke their shoulder.
This year?
No, last year.
Okay.
That was on the hard in Nova Scotia when we were trying to had to replace a transducer. And it'll be a total fucking waste. I got a bad advice from the Ray Marine customer service. The CP370. Ray Marine CP370. That's Ray Marine CP370. It's a fucking piece of shit. And the goddamn thing was broken from the factory in a box. It was broken straight up. And they wouldn't believe that their shit could be broken from the factory. So they had me replacing transducers and all this other shit, which means I got to haul out to do it.
God damn.
And that whole thing was a waste.
How does changing a transducer break a guy's arm in 3 places?
That was a girl's arm, and what happened was there was like a little fire pit at this marina, and it was next to like a 10-foot wall, like a seawall dropped down like rocks on the beach and shit. And then we pulled out. I changed the transducer, which I didn't realize till later, didn't fix it. But I thought at the time, all right, if we fix this, I'm going to Greenland without a depth sounder at this point. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
and it's uncharted. We're going to chart uncharted areas. I mean, it was just crazy. So I see this thing, and I am fucking exhausted. Like the trip up from United States to Nova Scotia, I didn't sleep for shit. And part of that's just breaking in a new crew, having them get used to it. I'm the captain. I'm up all the fucking time dealing with whatever's happening. Over the expedition, I can sleep more because they get better at it, you know. But the first like month, it's like all the way to Greenland, you're kind of helping, and it depends on the sailor. But anyways, I'm just knackered. I see this fire pit. Everybody wants to go sit by the fire pit and have a drink or whatever, and I'm like, I'm going to bed. So I wasn't even. I went to bed early. I was being a good boy with good behavior that day. I wake up at like 5 a.m. to Nick coming in my cabin. And, my first thought is like...
Nick, was he there last night at the party?
Yeah, Nick was there last night.
Is he like the guy with the beard?
Yeah, he's the guy with the red beard.
That's what I thought.
Sometimes people mistake him for me for some weird reason.
Yeah, okay.
But unfortunately, the ladies don't because he has some luck with the ladies. I just don't understand. It's like one of those guys. It's like, how do you have so much luck with the ladies? Like all the time, they like throw themselves at you. How does that work?
I've been married for 13 years, so I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, well, I couldn't tell you either. I don't got an excuse. But anyways, so Nick comes in at like 5 in the fucking morning, and my first thought is like, motherfucker, why are you in my cabin at 5 in the morning?
Yeah.
And then immediately I'm like, oh, well, there must be a problem, And he's like, Christy fell and da-da-da-da-da. And so what happened is they're down there, there's a fire, there's a wall right next to the fire, and night vision is all screwed up with a fire pit, and she just misplaced her step, and I mean, it wasn't anything, it was just a fluke fucking thing.
It's funny you say that because we have had pretty good luck with not having injuries on the boat either. But we were in Bergen last year in Norway, getting ready to leave. We were going to go Bergen to Scotland to Sweden. And I was skippering, and it's like the day before crew were supposed to join the boat, and 2 guys had come together as friends, and they were hiking in the hills above the city in Bergen. And one guy like fell down a ravine and like compound fractured his ankle. They had to helicopter him off the mountain.
Jesus.
And he called up. He's like, "Yeah, I'm not going to make the trip." He had to stay in the hospital there for like 2 weeks because he couldn't fly.
Jesus.
So we scrambled and somebody replaced him at the last second. But like, yeah, that shit happens.
Weird is down a crew because we couldn't.
Yeah, well,
in our case, there's nowhere to replace somebody last minute, so we just had to do that expedition minus 1 crew member. Essentially,
do you have the same the crew this year? Like I was gonna say, like last night we met a bunch of them at the party we had last night. It seems like you guys are like a pretty like tight bunch. Was it a good crew this year? And were they?
Yeah, 5 months in a boat will do that to you.
Each other. Well, I was gonna say, or it does the opposite.
Yeah, it does.
But were any of those?
They wouldn't have been there that long. Like if a person is a problem either with me or with other people in a real way, you're off the fucking boat and that's it. Like,
but were any of those people on last year as well? Like how much?
Nick came back for like 6 weeks. Nick has the most craziest, unfortunate ex-wife stories. He has the craziest ex-wife, and he's got to deal with stuff, and so he can't join a whole expedition again. Yeah, like he did last year because he's got to deal with shit back where he's from in Missouri. But he came for 6 weeks. So that was great. He came back for like the Northwest Passage part.
You knew what you could get with him. Like you could rely on him.
He mapped a bunch of shit last year. You need a boat. We needed boat drivers, essentially. People that understood the ice, understood uncharted areas. I could put them on the helm. Because mapping uncharted, there's rocks all over the goddamn place, and it's uncharted. So you're the one who's going to find them. Yep. And you don't want to find them with your keel, So, and he knows the boat well. He helped me build the boat, for like 7-8 months when I was building it, because he was around during that time in Annapolis working as a rigger. And he worked as a rigger, so I can put him up the mast. He can do rig inspections and all that kind of stuff. And he's a strong, he's a professional fighter for 16 years. He's a strong guy, so it's always good to have like some muscle. It's always like, hey, can you, anything from opening a jar that doesn't want to open to fucking lifting some giant heavy fucking thing. It's like, hey, Nick,
Nice.
So, anyways, but outside of that, everybody else was new. The crew mostly was female this year.
Yeah, that was, you have that, you guys made that sea shanty, which I'll try to get that, I'll get the audio out of the video you guys made and I'll play it at the beginning of this episode. So that was really cool. But I remember one of the lines in there was about the women overpowering the men.
Yeah, well, me and Adnan were typically the only guys. Nick showed up for a little bit, like I said. It was a 5-month expedition. Nick was there for 6 weeks. There's no thing. I don't really give a shit if you're male or female, and I'm not trying to go any direction with it. You know what I'm saying? It's just the way it ended up being this year.
Just want good people. Yeah.
And there was a rotation of crew before we left, which is very typical. You get somebody who commits and then they bail. And
are you paying crew, or is it all volunteer?
This year, we were only able to give them. We told them it was all volunteer. We were able to give them $1,000 at the end, which is a tiny amount of money for 5 months. And Adnan showed up 2 months ahead of time working in a boatyard.
Wow.
And Ali showed up a month ahead of time working in a boatyard. So there was 2 months of working every single day, and there's like no breaks. There's no days off. You know, it's like every day. I don't care if it's a weekend. Like we got to get this boat ready. You know. So they put in. I wish I could pay them. You know, a lot of some money. I mean, they deserve it. You know, but. You know, with Ali, I'd taken her on a delivery earlier in the year. She'd never been offshore, but she grew up sailing. She raced in college sailing. She can work on boats. You know, she has this business working on boats. She's got she lives on a boat. She refitted her old West Sail 32. Obviously, she got some decent taste in boats because the West Sail 32 is a great first boat. I mean, that's a fucking killer first boat. And, but she needed some offshore. So I took her on a delivery with my friend Angus Phillips, who's like 80.
Oh, yeah. I know Angus.
Yeah. So it was me and Angus. Angus was my last time at sea, and this was her first time at sea. So
cool.
But anyway, so I tested her out beforehand, and then she was fine. Had a little bit of seasick issues, but she got by the time we were heading back, she when a lot of these other guys were puking, she was eating and not being affected by it. So I mean, it was blowing a gale and all that kind of stuff. So or a light gale, I guess. But anyway, so yeah, Ali was great, young, and that's often how it works. I mean. The problem with finding crew for a long-ass expedition of this nature is typically you have 2 pools of people you can draw from. Because first off, you ain't got much money to pay them, and these are multi-month expeditions. Well, what person, male or female, between the ages of, let's say, 30 and 60, is going to be able to just drop what they're doing and leave for 3-4 months?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, people got mortgages, they got kids, they got all sorts of responsibilities. So that leaves you with derelicts, because derelicts ain't up to nothing, right? I don't mind doing a delivery. I know some derelict delivery crew, which are like, I mean, these guys are, they're every bit of a pirate. Like these guys should have been pirate. They would have been pirates for sure.
Yeah.
And they'd make decent crew. You just keep the alcohol away from them, and they're fine. They're hardy guys. They're tough. And I don't mind it for a week or 2 on a delivery to the Caribbean.
Yeah.
I'm not going to take one with me for 5 months, because eventually it's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
Once they get to land, they have some drinks, something bad's going to happen. So anyways. And then you got retired people.
Yep.
And then you got young people.
Yep.
And that's it. So, and young people and retired people both have their issues. I mean, older people are kind of stuck in their ways. Younger people think they know more than they do, as I did when I was younger.
Same here.
Yeah.
I would agree with that.
Yeah. So, it's so it all has its problems. But yeah, it was mostly younger people. Anne was another one. She had walked from Alabama to the top of Newfoundland, actually up to Labrador.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like backpacking?
Like walked by herself alone.
Damn.
Well, the Appalachian Trail was part of it.
Yeah.
But then she kept going. Like she got, like most people get to the top of the Appalachian Trail.
All right, we're done.
All right, we're in Maine. We made it. Woo.
Kevin, you hearing this? So Kevin did my sister's husband did the through hike trail.
Oh, yeah.
And he was one of the ones that stopped in Maine. This is crazy, though. She just kept going.
Everybody stopped.
Everyone stopped.
She got to the end of the Appalachian Trail. I was like, well, I guess I'll keep going. So she kept going. And
wow.
She wants to do some hiking in Greenland and do a bunch in Europe and all the rest. And she just lives in the woods. And she does it with like a poncho. Her tent is a little poncho.
Wow.
Yeah. And she did it up in Newfoundland. Like,
those are the right kind of people that don't require comfort. That you're
no,
looking for
she
like
sleeps
that.
in the snow, like literally. She sleeps on her boots in the snow so they don't freeze. So yeah, she's tough. And she doesn't come across. I mean, oftentimes these people don't come across as being tough or any. It's not like a person that you would know it if you talk to them. You would never know it actually talking to her. But it's the old judging a book by its cover routine. But anyway, So she was fine. Adnan had sailed his boat as Pearson 323 from California to New Zealand.
Was that the same boat you had?
Yeah, I guess I inspired him to buy it at one point.
All right, wow.
But he also, one was available.
He's the guy that played the fiddle last night,
Yeah,
right?
he's a mean fiddle
Dude,
player.
that was sick. That was cool.
What, your crew doesn't make shanties?
I don't spend 5 months with my crew. I spend 2 weeks with a crew at a time. Although August can play the concertina, so we should join forces sometime. Next time, we've been trying to get August to this boat show, so next time we get August here, he'll bring his concertina and
bring his concertina.
Adnan can bring his fiddle.
Yeah. So it's it was and I sailed to New Zealand with his boat. He had an electric engine, So he basically didn't have an engine.
Wow, cool.
And he went from California. So California, New Zealand, that's a good stretch. 323 Pearson, yada, yada. So he had a good amount of experience. So anyways, it was that. And then Nicole, of course. And then we had science helpers, but, they're mostly female. Like I said, it doesn't really matter. I don't really care.
So you and Nicole used to be a couple.
Right.
How is that relationship now when you guys are sort of still working together and doing this, and you're partners in the research in the ORP? It's like you two, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's been like that. I mean, I didn't know Nicole when I started the organization, but she got involved pretty early on.
Yeah. And
she was very critical in the early stages of, I knew initially I wanted to do plastics research because, fishing and going around the Americas, I caught so much plastic trash. I caught way more plastic trash than I caught fish.
Yeah.
Which maybe part of it is I'm a bad fisherman, but still, I was catching a ridiculous amount of plastic trash.
Yeah.
And so it pissed me off. And then when I got back, I thought, well, the first thing to do is that. So, I mean, it was my idea to do, the 2013 expedition. We spent 70 days in the Atlantic mapping out the eastern side of the garbage patch. We found that Swan 48 floating around, blah, 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 blah. And then we sailed from San Francisco to Yokohama, Japan the next year, doing stuff in the Pacific, also nonstop. This was back when I was still doing everything nonstop. And spent 60 some days in the Pacific doing that shit. And I wanted to get back up to the Arctic, and we're about to do a major plastics expedition in like 10 days here.
Here on the bay?
Yeah.
Oh,
it's
cool.
The biggest one by far that's ever been done in the bay. We'll talk about that in a minute, I guess. But anyways, Nicole has been critical. I didn't know shit about the scientific process, or I knew this was an issue and I wanted to do it, and I knew I could sail out in the middle, because these garbage patches are literally in the middle of the ocean.
Yeah, but you knew you could do that, but
I mean, that was no big deal. I got to sail in the middle of the Atlantic, whatever. It's right there. I just spent 309 days at sea. What the fuck does that matter?
Yeah.
But there's obviously a lot more that goes into the situation. So Nicole has been critical throughout the process. And I mean, we work together, and we've known each other for a long time, and there's ups and downs to working with somebody you've been in a relationship with. There's definitely I don't know, maybe it speaks to, pat myself on the back, but it speaks to our maturity that we can put whatever things behind us and still have that professional relationship.
That's cool. That's really cool.
Yeah. So yeah, it's fine. It's good. Nicole's good.
So another topic that you've talked about in your podcast, it's very clear. I don't know if I think you knew this last night, but I saw that Hank Schmidt was getting a tour of your schooner last night. He emailed me before the party. He's like, Matt and I didn't have the greatest relationship, but I want to come to the party tonight. Like, you think it's going to be okay? I didn't tell you this. I was like, yeah, it'll be fine.
I wasn't sure if it was him or not. I talked to him for a minute. The thing is, I didn't even know the guy's name. And all this has been blown way out of proportion. Well, maybe it has, maybe it hasn't. I don't feel like it was. We need to rehash the situation.
We don't need to rehash it. I was only asking. You can go back and listen.
Look, I don't need to rehash the story. I've
My point is,
never said the guy's name ever.
Speaking to maturity, this is where I'm going with this, that he came to the party last night, and you guys were both adults, and he got a tour of your boat, and it was peaceful.
I never had a problem with the dude. It was his wife that had a problem with, and I really didn't,
You never met her. This we definitely don't need to
I don't
rehash.
have a problem with her personally. I was in a boat in the middle of the Chesapeake Bay with a broken engine and no wind.
Yes, Andy, I do feel very mature about this, and it was nice having Hank over last night.
Of course it was. I got no problem with Hank. I got no problem with anybody. I don't even say name. Like, I've never literally said the guy's name. Because I'm not trying to, it was nothing against dude. Like, it had nothing, he was in the ocean at the time. It had nothing to do with dude. I was just trying to get a tow on his boat, and his wife wasn't letting me get a tow. And what the fuck am I doing? I'm drifting literally in a shipping lane in the Chesapeake. I got a freighter going 100 feet from me, honking their horn at me, and with a broken engine and no wind. I need a tow. And she wouldn't let me get a tow. I got a tow. I said, fuck it. I'm getting a goddamn towboat to tow. They didn't have tow insurance.
Yeah.
So she was afraid to give me a tow. Anyways, yeah. And then, whatever. I just did a podcast talking about, like I do anything. If I trip and fall and break my arm,
that's right.
I'm going to do a podcast about
that's
trip and fall.
That's my favorite thing about you. You just say it like it is.
Well, it's whatever's been going on.
So what are we going to talk about when we start the double-handed podcast? What are the topics that we're going to cover?
Fucking nothing useful, I assume.
Clearly not.
Bunch of dumb shit. I mean, it's best if we can actually do it to not have anything to talk about. I think it's best. I mean, when I do my single-handed podcast, I don't have any agenda. I don't write anything down. I don't think about shit. I just turn the microphone on.
Exactly, yeah.
And just start talking. So
Lee was joking earlier today when I told him I was coming back here to do this with you. He's like, you should just leave a microphone on the table, leave the room, and just let Matt have at it and see what happens. Hello, this is Matt on the wind. Just see what happens.
Shit, I could do it on the wind. I don't know. I guess. I haven't. I could interview myself. That'd be very odd.
You could
Speak in third person.
get high on acid and then do that. Might make it more interesting.
I tried to record myself once. I don't eat acid much anymore, but I tried to maybe every 3 years or something. But I tried to do it once, record myself when I ate way too much. I had like 3 hits and it was way too strong. But yeah, it was gibberish. Now, granted, I ate way too much. Like, I ain't gonna lie. Like, I will never eat that much again. When I was a kid, I used to eat ridiculous acid. So I'm like, I grew up doing lots of drugs, and so
as we've covered extensively on this show.
Yeah, I've got a lot of experience with it. I wouldn't suggest, that but I have years of experience. When I was a kid, I used to do a ton of it, and sell a ton of it, and all that kind of shit. And so I've eaten 10 strips. I've licked entire sheets of acid. I've got crazy stories about that shit. Twice I've eaten probably 30 hits or something. And both times I was at a rave, because I used to go to a lot of raves back in the 90s, and spin records at some of them. And one time, me and my friend Kat, who fucking rest in peace, but great. Actually, if it wasn't for Kat, I never probably would have gotten into sailing. And it had nothing to do with sailing. I never had the money to buy boats, because he helped me with some of the hustling shit, and allowed me to make the money I needed to buy my first 3 sailboats. But and he's dead, of course. But anyway, so me and Kat are there. We've been chasing this dude at these different raves, because it's like every weekend you're always going to them. And you're in Cincinnati one day, you're in Cleveland, you're in Detroit, you're in Chicago, you're always in different cities. So we've been chasing this motherfucker who owes Kat money, and Kat was a pretty big dude, 6'4" or 5", big dude. So we finally, chasing. Like, he's hopping fences and shit. Like, we're fucking,
like actually chasing him.
Like, we were chasing him literally and figuratively. Like, we see the motherfucker, we're like, that's that motherfucker. And we're like, get him. And then he would see us and he would run. So finally we got him. Like, him and a couple of his boys. It was me and Kat and a couple of our people. And I'm ready to blast this motherfucker. We're sitting here, and I don't know, I'm like, 17, 16 or something like that at the time. And anyways,
Are there like guns involved in this, or are you just like
No, we're at a rave. Yeah, no,
Okay,
we didn't have any
right.
guns. We're just gonna beat the crap out of him and take his whatever he had. Empty his pockets essentially.
Yeah.
And mostly it was just frustration, because we've been chasing this son of a bitch for like 5 raves or something. So anyways, we finally,
So wait, are you also like partying at the raves? Like, so is this like work and fun mixing here? Or are you just...
no. So the first rave I went to, I ate ecstasy and danced my ass off, and it was in 1995. I was like 14 years old, right? And I thought it was great, and I can't dance for shit, so I must have been some good ecstasy. But it really quickly became a situation, like, I realized this is like a gold mine for drug dealing, essentially, which is mostly ecstasy and crystal meth. And it really both, I guess. But and then it became a business thing, and me and Kat would go to a lot of raves together. We'd show up with $20, we'd leave with $1,000 each, and every drug you can imagine, like pockets full of shit, and we're little street corner pharmacists and whatnot. But anyways, we get this guy. We're just waiting. He's like, I got some acid, and of course that's the easiest thing to fake out of all the drugs. It's easy. So, and you're always worried about.
Why is it easy to fake?
Because you can just take a piece of paper if it looks like, because so much of it's paper.
Okay.
And you can take a piece of paper and you can cut it up. And white blotter was a pretty typical thing. And white blotter is just white hits of acid. Sometimes they have prints and things, Alice in Wonderland print or whatever it is. But a sheet of acid, is typically just whatever. And these were just a white. So he's like, I got acid. It's just a white sheet. Now, back in those days, it was 2.5 inches by 2.5 inches. Now it's 2 inches by 2 inches, because it's like everything, right? Everything's gotten smaller. But anyway, so he hands it to Kat. Kat hands it to me, all real quick, just joo. And I take it and I fucking throw it in my mouth, because
You didn't think it was real?
I eaten enough acid that I know the taste. So back then I used to eat a lot of it. So it's like this metallic-y sort of taste, citrus metallic sort of thing. And the whole thing was like, I'm gonna put it in my mouth and I'm gonna blast this dude, And I put it in my mouth and I looked at Kat. I was like, Kat, I need the keys to the car. So I knew it was real. I was like, fuck. So yeah, I went and sat in the car and tripped. I went out to a completely different universe on that one.
For how long?
It wasn't the worst one, but it was a bad one. The worst one was also a Cat in a different rave, and I ate they used to have smacky rolls. I don't know what they call them now. They're like MDMA, man, and Molly. Nobody ever called it fucking Molly back then. But a smacky roll was ecstasy mixed with heroin. It was smacky rolls. And so I ended up getting, I didn't know it was a smacky roll, but I got one. And it lays you on your ass. Like, you're the happiest you've ever been in your life just sitting on the ground. You know what I'm saying? Because, smacking, heroin and fucking ecstasy combined. And I didn't mean to do that. But anyways, I ended up being like, it was a lot, to say the least. And I started coming out of it enough where I'm walking around the rave later and I meet this guy and you're all euphoric with ecstasy and all that kind of shit. And I buy a sheet of acid off a guy I didn't know, and I'm like 16 years old or something. And so I'm coming back from the rave with Kat, and Kat's just telling me I'm an idiot. He's like, you dumbass. You never buy acid off someone you don't know. Like, he got ripped off. And he kept going on and on about it. So I take the whole thing and I just shove it in my mouth. Because I was just
all or nothing. That's you, all or nothing.
Yeah, and it was real. And so I went from having like one of the most intense ecstasy fucking experiences to like one of the most intense LSD experiences back to back. It was.
So what do you think about the whole trend with like they're actually bringing back psychedelic research for like mental health and stuff?
Oh yeah, no, I'm a strong believer. I do.
You think it's like you buy into that?
Well, that's normally why I've done it for the last 20 years, because I don't do it when you're a kid. At least when I was a kid, there was lots of drugs, and you did it for fun and shit like that. And I've stopped doing that a long time ago. So for me, it's and it does depend a bit on the situation. But I find, and I'm not suggesting people do this because I've got a lot of experience with this, but I find that with the right amount of LSD, I can look at every 2 to 3 years, I can look at what have I done, what am I doing, what am I trying to do, and do it from a different perspective than I would normally have because I'm tripping. And but you can't eat too much because you have to be able to keep it together, And it's great. I think it can be extremely therapeutic because you can get a perspective on things that is just a very different positive perspective. So there has been a lot with both LSD. I know a guy actually who's in his 60s who did one of these LSD studies at Johns Hopkins University. He was all controlled in a university. They'd give him acid. They'd set him down and play music. He's one of the... And it like changed his world, and he like became a big believer. So, yeah, I think that mushrooms or LSD done under the right conditions with somebody, obviously they could be done wrong very easily. Can be very effective.
Case in point, you just gave us a few examples.
Yes, don't eat an entire shit.
I think that's the cool thing about you, though. Like, you have all these stories. You made it through all that. We've talked about that before, but like you're able to like talk about the maturity thing again. Like, you can talk about it from like, yeah, I fucked up and did all this stupid shit, but also there's another side to it that's like therapeutic. I think that's cool.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I was a kid. I was a crazy.
I just think what I'm saying about you is people don't. If you don't get to know you, you just like you're very multidimensional. You as a person, as a personality, because like you hear all these old stories and you would just kind of draw a conclusion that you're this stereotypical drug guy, but then actually you're very thoughtful and think about this stuff. And I just think it's really cool. Every time I talk to you, I get that impression.
Well, it made it kind of weird, honestly, and it has made it kind of weird my entire life. Because when I was in that like street life drug dealing shit, all my friends had broken homes. None of them had fathers. We're all in and out of jail. Everybody came from some weird. I had the cult I grew up in. Everybody came from some weird, crazy shit. And but they were all 100%, street drug dealing. Most of them are dead now.
Yeah.
Almost all of them are. But and they just never left the lifestyle. But I always was kind of like, I was there. I was 100%. Like, it wasn't that I was 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I mean, nobody was a bad influence on me. I was totally a bad influence all by myself. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, like, I was into history, you know, and I was into politics, and I was, I tried to talk to him about Shackleton or something, and they're like, who the fuck is Shackleton? Like, So I didn't really fit in. I fit in, but I didn't fit in. And the same with when I was getting locked up a lot as a kid. Like, I was fit in, but I didn't. And then I came to Annapolis, in my mid-20s and completely walked away from the street life. And then now it's like I'm in Annapolis and I don't fit in with these people.
I was going to ask you, do you feel like you fit in anywhere now?
Well, I'm 42, so at this point I don't really give a shit. But it was for a long time. No, because you don't work in any world. You know what I'm saying? The street, I fit in better in that street world in a lot of ways because we all had that kind of similar fucked up background thing. And not just the background, but because of that, we were like brothers growing up, because we spent time all the time. We were around each other.
And I guess you had a sense of protection for each other too.
Yeah. Oh, fuck. And because of the drug dealing thing, like, we were the only crew that I knew that didn't like cannibalize each other, that didn't turn their backs. So that happened so much. And you'd meet all these little cliques and things, and and they always end up fucking each other over, ratting each other out. Like, we never did that, and so anyways, we were super close, but going from that, and it's funny because I was living in a really bad neighborhood in Columbus, Ohio, off Cleveland Avenue, north side, which is a notoriously fucked up neighborhood, and across the street from the projects, and people get shot, and all this drug dealing and all this kind of stuff going on. And then from that to like moving to Annapolis. And it's like in that neighborhood,
yuppie central.
Yeah, in that neighborhood, if you don't speak in a certain way, and you don't have like some rims on your car or something like that, like people are gonna look at you like you're a mark ass bitch. I'm gonna rob this motherfucker. You're gonna get robbed.
You're a mark ass bitch.
Yeah, and then if you come to Annapolis,
I would be a mark ass bitch, I think.
Yeah, you don't want to go there. I can't go back.
Because now you one of them.
Well, it's because it's been too long. I lost my ghetto card. I had to pass. I used to have a ghetto pass because I knew all the big drug dealers. Big B was the guy who brought in all the coke, and I knew all the soldiers, the guys on the corner who sold the crack. We used to, we hung out with all. We used to fucking sell them guns when we were younger. Most of my friends, I didn't sell them guns much, but they liked buying guns off white boys because they felt white boys aren't going to rob them or less likely to rob them, and we're fine, whatever. So it was, they're all the doughboys, they would call them. But anyways, to go from that environment, which was complete 100%, to Annapolis, it's like, in Annapolis, if you show up talking like you're from the hood, especially as a white guy, then they're pretty, it's a pretty preppy sort of thing going on here. Then so you don't fit in anywhere. You're like, it was a weird transition.
I mean, I say the same thing. Like all of us that have these itinerant lifestyles, like we're moving around all the time. You're never in one place long enough